Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to get the live event started here pretty soon. We're just getting a few things set up in the back and letting people join just before the hour. Welcome, everybody. Feel free to say hello in the chat. Great. Well, it looks like we are just about ready to go. There's so many things popping up on my screen all over the place right now. I love it. This is always a great way to start a live event. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I see a hi from Cleveland. That's actually where I'm from. Great to see you out there. Milwaukee, people joining from all over the place. We have an amazing number of people who signed up for this today from literally all over the world. And we're so excited to talk with you. We're going to get going here in just a moment. Sometimes it takes a little while for people to be able to join from the waiting room. So if you don't mind just holding on a moment or two. And while you're waiting, if you'd like, you can let us know where you're from in the chat. Heck, you can let us know if you've seen any birds where you are. Today's event is all about birds. It's all about the birds that we're excited to be celebrating coming back this time of year. And it's about sharing that with a community of people that also thinks that's a pretty neat thing. So thank you all for joining. And like I said, we're going to get going here probably in just about 30 seconds. Welcome, everybody. Quebec. I love Quebec. Spent some time there. People have been talking about listening to robins, bluebirds. Oh, the Oglala Lakota Nation. Welcome, everybody. Bird feeders, shipping sparrows, Berea, Kentucky. All kinds of great places from across our country and the world. Welcome, everybody. We're about 2 minutes after. I'm going to go ahead and get started. People can still be joining. You can join at any time. We'll try and make sure everybody's oriented as we continue to go through today. So, thank you for joining us and welcoming back birds with this special Bird Songs of Spring live event. I'm Charles Eldermeyer. I'm from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and I'm a live media producer. And I'll be your host for today's conversation with two special guests from the Cornell Lab, who we'll welcome on in just a second. While everybody's joining, I want to ask if you enjoy our time together today, if you enjoy what we're doing, enjoy what you see, consider staying connected to the Cornell Lab and supporting our mission to conserve birds and biodiversity in part through events like these to celebrate birds and the birdwatching community. We have several people helping in the chat in both Zoom and on YouTube. Thank you, Ben, Natalie, and Matt. If people have questions and you're watching in Zoom, please use the Q&A feature. You can see there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your tab, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And if you're on YouTube, please use the chat, and we'll try and keep track of them as it scrolls by. Given how many people were registered for this event, we're pretty unlikely to be able to get to all of your questions, but we're going to follow up with an email that has links to resources and the recording from this event. We're also giving away a free Bird Academy course to 3 lucky attendees, and everyone who registers will receive a 50% off coupon for a discount on a Bird Academy course. Okay, well, let's get started and bring in our guest speakers today. Why don't you guys go ahead and turn your cameras on and your mics? Perfect. Welcome. It's my pleasure to welcome Ileana Betancourt and Hugh Powell to our event today. Hi, Ileana. Hi, Hugh. Um, they both work for the Cornell Lab, and we're actually excited when I asked them to join me for this event. Some people don't think of like getting in front of potentially thousands of people and talking about birds, and they were actually keen to do it. So I wondered, Hugh and Ileana, if you would share a few words about what you do at the lab and your birding background. Why don't you start, Ileana?
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Ileana Betancourt. I've worked at the lab for nearly 5 years, and as a member of the marketing team, I help people feel welcome, curious, confident as they enjoy and learn about birds. I also really like spending time in nature. And when it comes to birding, I would say or consider myself an advanced beginner birder. I'm based in Philadelphia area, and I also like hiking, soccer, gardening, and specifically native gardening and veggie gardening. And you might see a guest appearance by my indoor cat, who also likes to watch birds. She might walk across the screen at some point. I'm also a mom to two little toddlers, and I really enjoy sharing birds and nature with them as well. Really happy to be here. Charles, thanks for hosting. Really excited to kind of see what people are sharing with us in the chat and to celebrate springtime birdsong.
How about you, Hugh?
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name's Hugh Powell. I'm the senior editor for digital content at the lab, which basically just means I run the All About Birds website that you may be familiar with, and a number of other digital publications. I occasionally write and edit for Living Bird magazine, which I have up in the back of my office here. Um, I've been at the lab for, I think, 18 years. It's just such a wonderful place to be. And I've been a birder for a really long time. I don't exactly, a lot of people like to talk about spark birds, and I don't really exactly have a spark bird, but I do have a spark person, which is my dad. My dad was a very serious birder, and he would take me and my siblings and my mom every chance he got on vacations and weekends to different patches of land to go and look at birds. And he really nurtured and fanned the sort of like interest of mine in birds and the natural world. And I just think um, that sort of like function that of people, many people out in the audience may have their own spark person that helped them along, and in fact many of you may be spark people to somebody else. I just think that's a really wonderful part about bird watching, and a really important thing to do. So thank you for having me.
It's a really great way to kind of give a little context to today's event, Hugh, because we're not trying to teach you everything about birds today. We're not trying to make sure you leave with, everything memorized and ready to go for the spring. But what we do hope to do is give you a little bit of a sense that you're part of a group of people that like birds. We're going to share, looking at some fun birds, listening to some fun birds, talking about some strategies for learning birds if that's what you want to do, and then hopefully set you up to just make use of all those good resources in the best way that you find works for you. So we thought it'd be fun to try and channel that feeling of spring depending on where you are. I'm going to share my screen right now. And if you see me looking off screen every once in a while, it's because I have all these windows with all your chats and everything up and going. Um, so you should be looking right now at a pretty unremarkable looking place, a nice place, maybe a little park somewhere. This is in Boulder, Colorado. Early spring day. All the colors, but still a lot of gray, not a lot of green in the sky yet. And I'm going to play a little soundscape from here. As I play it, if you recognize any of the birds singing in the background, feel free to throw them in the chat or just enjoy listening. All right. It always seems so jarring to stop the sound of natural sounds, which I love so much. But I see a lot of comments in the chat about what birds they thought that people might be hearing. I see red-winged blackbirds. My cat is trying to find the birds. Did anything stick out from that recording for you, Hugh or Ileana?
Yeah, definitely the red-winged blackbirds. And when I think of spring, that to me is the harbinger. They come back so early, and you know, I can imagine them kind of in the marshy areas here in the reeds, setting up camp.
How about you, Hugh?
Yeah, I really like this, partly because you said it's kind of unremarkable, right? It's pretty, but it's also could all, kind of almost be anywhere, and that's one of those great things about bird watching and also bird listening is that, wherever you are, there's going to be birds and there's something to listen to. These are birds that everybody's picking up on, that are really widespread. Robin, red-winged blackbird, song sparrow. And it's just nice to think this could be anywhere. This could be sort of any walk almost that many of us could be going on right now, those of us that are listening in North America anyway.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We have a lot of international viewers that signed up for this, and everything in this talk is going to be kind of focused around North America. But a lot of the things, the tips, the strategies, they're relevant no matter where you're watching birds. And we hope you enjoy seeing some birds not from your neck of the woods. I saw somebody from Yorkshire posting some birds earlier. So by all means, I would love to also sit and listen to your spring choruses somewhere else. So we hope over these next few slides, oh, there we go. Over these next few slides, we're going to share some favorites that we chose because we couldn't choose all the birds in the world. And so if you have some favorites that don't make this list of a handful of birds, don't be surprised and feel free to throw those in the chat too. Our first one up already has come up multiple times. This beautiful red-winged blackbird. I don't know if one of you want to comment on kind of how those first red-winged blackbirds of the year kind of make you feel when they first pop up.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Hugh.
I knew we would do this. I would just say that for us in the Northeast, right, red-winged blackbirds actually leave. They don't necessarily leave everywhere in North America, but it's one of those things in the gray days in March. That's one of the things that you're just waiting is that first red-winged blackbird to come back, and then hear these. And it's usually the males that come back first. Females come a week or two later, and they make their own sounds. They don't sing like this, but they make their own sounds. And that when they start to post up on the cattails, it's just one of those sort of like satisfying moments when they're back.
Anything more to add to that, Ileana?
Just it means spring's right around the corner, and that's exciting because they're some of the earliest noisemakers, I would say, who are shifting their habits for springtime.
Yeah, another one of those springtime early singers, American robin.
Yeah, I feel like these guys are the traditional harbingers of spring. You see them in storybooks. You kind of see that as the sign of spring in a grassy field. And that shifted for me when I learned more about birds and learned about the red-winged blackbirds. But I just love their cheery voice, the cheerily, cheerily sound that they make.
Yeah, that's a great way to remember that song too. Cheerily, chirp. One thing I love about robins is these are just such tough birds. You think of them as just your yard bird. You drive around a neighborhood, you see them in somebody's yard picking up earthworms. But there's basically anywhere you want to go in North America, you can see an American robin. If you find some open ground up in the mountains out west, as far as the North Slope of Alaska, robins will be up there in the summertime. They're down the Sierra Madre of Mexico. So this is just one of those birds that can be really familiar and also really kind of a wilderness bird at the same time.
And if you experience this, put it in the chat, but I have holly bushes at my house, and there's a certain time of the year when the American robins descend on the holly bushes. It's very exciting. It's a huge food frenzy, very exciting moment. It happened a month ago, I think, for me.
This next clip I like because not every bird is a bird that comes back that starts making a lot of noise in the spring. It's just classic.
Yeah, I love the Carolina wren because it reminds me of the noise that my grandfather would make when he would hold babies. They have this very characteristic little trill. And so whenever I hear it in the spring, it just, it warms my heart to think of him. And that's how I remember it.
And somebody mentioned in the chat, loud and rollicking. That is a very, very good description of Carolina wren. Somebody else noted that it's the state bird of South Carolina, which is also really fun. Good job, South Carolina. And this is a bird that has moved northwards in recent decades. And whether this is partly because of more people feeding birds, or partly because the climate is getting warmer, But now up in even as far up into New England, you can have Carolina wrens all winter long, which is kind of a fun thing because they are so loud and they're kind of just real cheerful birds.
Sort of the opposite side of the spectrum. Another little brown guy that comes back, but not from everywhere.
Yeah, the nice thing about song sparrows is that they are widely spread, and as more of a beginner birder, they're a sparrow that I can feel more confident about identifying, especially by ear, because of that characteristic um, song that it makes. I feel like I hear them almost anywhere. I think I saw someone else in the chat say that too, but they are very widespread.
Yeah, this is a great bird because they are all over the place. They are kind of winter birds in the south, I believe. So I don't know if people down south that are listening, if you hear those during the wintertime singing, but it's always nice when they come back here and then you start hearing them singing on a cold morning. They're back. They've been in my driveway this week,
I
which is
just
really
heard them this
nice.
morning. Yeah.
The thing that I love about song sparrows is because they're so widespread and they're loud and they're relatively easy to find. People can feel like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can identify sparrows because they're, brown and streaky. But the song sparrow is such a great place to start because it's really recognizable, and it's really around a lot of places.
And then this next clip is a good reminder that it's not just birds singing that are often filling the world around us in the spring with lots of noise. Woodpeckers start to drum. They have their own squeaky kind of calls, which are wonderful in their own right. But there are some that truly stick out from kind of the din, and sapsuckers are one of those. Let's take a listen to this red-breasted sapsucker.
So we picked this species because we don't want to just do all eastern species. We try to, cover most of North America, relative, give everybody some birds that they're familiar with. Red-breasted sapsucker is a bird from way out west. But there are four species of sapsuckers in North America, and they all make some version of this really, really distinctive drumming. And so I just love it when over here in the east, we have yellow-bellied sapsuckers come back. They leave in the wintertime, they come back, and you start to hear them with that really unique tattoo, that kind of stuttering drumming that they do, and it's just like a welcome back kind of a thing.
I think of it almost like a jazz drummer, whereas all these other
Yeah.
woodpeckers are out there doing their like marching band thing. They are truly just they stick out and they just sound so creative. They're just mixing and matching.
That's
Yeah, it
great.
was the first one that I felt confident identifying. I think if I had a bunch of sapsuckers in the same space, that would be hard, but I learned this one in sapsucker woods because it was so distinct compared to um, other woodpeckers. And sapsucker woods is at Cornell, in case anyone's wondering.
And for their last bird in this first set, we wanted to choose a bird that also kind of captures for what many people feel like is that magical feeling of spring. And thrushes have such incredible voices. Take a listen to this hermit thrush. Just incredible.
Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
that and I think fairies, I think magic, I think forest glitter.
Yeah, this is just such a nice bird, and it just makes you think about that calm feeling you have when you're in the woods. This is a bird that's really a forest interior bird, and so it's just so fun to be on a hike or driving through some nice undisturbed woods, and you'll have a chance to hear this hermit thrush. This is another bird that's a winter bird for a lot of people. It's resident in the mountains out west, and then it's in the northern North America where it breeds. But if they are leaving from where you are now, you've got more coming. There's 5 more species of thrushes that are on their way back from the wintering grounds right now and have similar songs. One of my favorites is Swainson's thrush, which is pretty widely distributed. Has a similar song, but with a different kind of rising quality. So listen out for these. They're pretty recognizable.
Thanks for sharing that. I wanted to take a moment to step out of that shared screen to also welcome anybody new that's come in since the start. You're in the middle of our spring birdsong event, welcoming bird songs back, and we're just getting started. We've just celebrated some of these great early spring singers. I'm host Charles Eldermeyer from the Cornell Lab, and two other Cornell Lab birders are joining us, Hugh Powell, Ileana Betancourt. And it's been really fun reading through a lot of the questions that are like streaming past in the chats. And we can't probably get to all of them, but I wanted to bring a couple of them up right now. One question that's come up a few times from the audience is like, what are the birds doing singing now? Why all of a sudden have we moved into this time when there's all this sound filling the air? And I don't know if you wanted to touch on anything with that, Hugh.
Um, I have to admit, I was reading a comment in the chat about somebody using Bird ID to identify hermit thrush, which I thought was cool.
Oh,
But it
sweet.
does mean that I missed your question.
I'm going to pass it over to Ileana then, because she looked
But
like she
thank
was
you,
paying
Cheryl
attention.
Matthews.
Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Oh, good. The question was, why are they singing now? What are we,
Yeah.
doing early on? Yeah, this is the time of year when a lot of birds are getting ready to find their mate, to look for a nesting spot. They want to be seen, they want to be heard. And so it's actually, I don't want to go too far into what we're talking about next, but um, do you want to add anything to that, Hugh?
Yeah, so what we're getting right now is a lot of short distance migrants. So some birds just move sort of to the south of the continent, and then they come back often before the long distance migrants come back. And so that's what will be coming in the next wave. And actually, folks down south probably seeing some of those really bright neotropical migrants. They are tropical birds most of the year, and then they come up here, and we get to enjoy them up here. And that's when, we really love being birders, is when those birds are coming back. And when they come back, they're going to be singing to do two things, simultaneously. One is to tell it's often the males that are singing. In some species, the females also sing. But in general, they're trying to tell other birds what their territory is. And they're also trying to advertise themselves because they're looking for a mate and they want to, make a connection, whether it's with a longtime mate that's also coming back or whether it's with a new mate.
And there's just some really neat stuff, like you said, Hugh, coming up in the chat. And this is what I'm getting at too. People talking about I've never heard a hermit thrush before, right? That's part of the fun of birds because even for people who maybe have spent a lifetime birding, one of the really exciting things is around the corner. It could be someplace you've spent a lot of time, or it could be someplace new. Birds have this way of number one, showing up in places sometimes when they're not expected, which always seems to be almost a magical quality about them as well. But there's so many and they're so diverse that there's always a chance to learn more. Even, it may not be another species. It might be that this bird you thought you knew really well actually has a few other tricks up its sleeve and has a vocalization you didn't even know it made. So for the next part of this live event today, we're going to be talking about some tips and some tricks and some resources, hopefully, that can help you if one of your goals is to get to know these birds around you a little bit more by their songs. These are some sort of basic steps that you can take. And I will also preface this by saying we're going to be following up this live event by sending you this information, links to things. There's going to be a link to the recording eventually. There's going to be lots of opportunities to learn. And so while we will probably post some links in chat and stuff, if as you ask about it, we also want you to be able to sit back, enjoy this stuff, think about it now, ask questions now if you have them, and hopefully enjoy our time together and with the rest of the people in the audience. So first thing up, I think a lot of you probably have already heard of or already are using Merlin Bird or Merlin Bird ID. It's an amazing app that really can unlock what you're hearing and seeing. And I wondered, Hugh, or Mia or Ileana, like how have you found Merlin? How do you use Merlin in your day-to-day birding? Maybe Ileana, you can start.
Okay, I'll start. Um, I would say Merlin has kind of been a portal for me to learn more about uh bird sounds, their chips, their songs. And when I'm outside listening to birds or trying to observe them, I do like pulling out Merlin to help me hear what's around. And then once I hear the bird, I like to find it and see it singing and figure out exactly what that bird is. And that helps me cement my knowledge around what birds I'm seeing. I also really like the spectrographs.
And we're going to talk a little bit
Spectrograms.
about we're going to talk a little bit about spectrograms in a moment too. So hold that thought, Ileana. Anything to add to that, Hugh?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, like you said, are familiar with Merlin already, and particularly with the Merlin Sound ID feature, which we launched just a few years ago. And when we cracked that, like it was a pretty hard technical problem, but when we cracked it, it just became such a valuable tool for people because now you can let Merlin Sound ID play and get a list like you're seeing on the screen here of what Merlin is hearing. And I feel like the way I think of it is that Merlin's given us a starting point here by kind of opening the door on what you're hearing. Before Merlin, when many of us learned bird songs, you just had to listen, try to pick out sounds one by one, maybe have a friend or a knowledgeable person to sort of help you understand what you're hearing. And Merlin just allows you to sort of narrow that down much more quickly to what some of the possibilities are there. Maybe a name comes up there that you don't even recognize, and now you're all of a sudden know. A friend of mine didn't know what golden crown kinglets sound like. They have a really neat high-pitched call that they had been hearing in their yard, but didn't realize until they saw it on Merlin. But you know, as you move forward and become more familiar with bird songs and want to learn them yourself, that's where Merlin is that first step. But eventually, you want to be able to put your phone in your pocket, probably, and just recognize those birds when you're out yourself. And that's what we're going to try to talk about now. Some of the ways that we do this.
So Ileana mentioned spectrograms, and for some people out there, spectrograms might be a new concept. You might be using Merlin, but not paying all that much attention to the spectrogram that it's generating along the top. And so I thought it'd be fun to just quickly do a fun little exercise with this sort of blurry looking picture on your screen, which is a spectrogram. And a spectrogram is basically a visual way to look at the sound. It's a little bit like reading music, where as you go up, that means the pitch of the sound is going up. As you move from left to right, that's time. And so the length of a note would be how long it is. And then in this case, how dark it is represents how much energy is in it or how loud it is. And so, and because it is a visual thing, spectrograms can unlock a new way of thinking about sound and describing sound for people who are more visual thinkers, or it's just another tool when you're trying to kind of figure out what a sound might be. So in this spectrogram on screen, you can see there's two main dark sounds. We're looking mostly at those two lower ones, those little bits that are sort of above each of those two notes. I can mouse over these guys. Those are called overtones, but the main sounds that we're hearing are these ones down here. And so this is a two note, pretty much, or two sort of long sounds there, one a little bit higher than the next one, both about the same length. And you can see, at least in this 4-second clip here that you can see, it's that song's repeated twice. And so before I play the clip, I thought I'd give you guys a chance. This is a North American bird that's singing right now outside my house. Give you a chance to throw in the chat, if you'd like, who you think this bird is, if you had to try and figure it out just from looking at this spectrogram. Then I'm going to play it. Then we're going to show you who it is on the next slide. So I'll give you just a couple seconds. Let's get all your answers in now. Oh, we've got some good guesses coming in. Okay, without further ado, here's the sound
Oh,
itself. Here we go. What do people think now that they've heard it? So for those of
someone
you who
had
know, Go ahead.
Someone thought it was a cheeseburger. Wait,
Ah,
wait.
cheeseburger. That's, yeah, we're going to get into those fun sounds, those fun words. I'll look at them all popping up now. So the fun thing about a spectrogram too is we can hear that bird singing in the front, but you can see those lines in the background behind those two notes that we're listening to. And those are other birds singing. They're just further away, right? Um, so we've got a few more slides related to this, but let's just go to the next one here. So here's our little culprit. Here's our chickadee. Let's let him sing his song. Watch his little throat. Sorry. And when you think about tough birds with such a sweet, sweet whistled song, this bird weighs only about 10 grams and it can crush any winter just about in North America and survive and make it out the other end. What a really fun bird. And great job to everybody guessing in the chat. So this is one of those things where for you, it might be a tool that works well. But Ileana, you were saying you actually found it pretty spectrograms to be pretty useful, right?
Yeah, I think coming from a musical family and then also having learned to read music growing up, it matches pretty well with what you see when you're reading music, with what you had said with the pitch getting higher as the notes get higher, and then also the rhythm, you're seeing that. And also, I guess the loudness too. But that's a little different than reading music. You don't see that with the intensity of the line on the spectrogram.
Right.
And
You have to look for the Italian words written above and below it, I think, right?
yeah.
Um, well, so that's one way that some people are able to just unlock, oh, that's a bird, that's a sound it's making, and Merlin is generating those as it's going. So next time you're using Merlin, maybe take a close look. And the neat thing is too, when you tap the birds that Merlin identifies, it'll go and highlight where that bird is in the spectrogram. So you can actually get to know what those birds are, what their spectrograms look like, and see if that helps. Because for some people, it definitely does. There's also another kind of tried and true technique for learning who's singing, and that is picking a singing bird and trying to find it.
Yeah, in early spring, when there aren't leaves on on the trees quite yet, it's easier to see the birds. So it's a really good opportunity to listen and then find them. And then, as you had mentioned earlier, the birds are also looking for a mate. They're trying to be seen. And so when you hear it and then see it, it really helps lock in that understanding of the bird. It provides a stronger memory. And it's also fun to just watch their behavior and how their body changes as they're singing.
Yeah, so in a lot of kinds of learning, if you can get more senses involved, then you're helping to build a stronger, more robust memory. And so that's why spectrograms help, because not only do you know what it sounds like to you, but now you can think about what it looks like as well. A friend of mine loved to say that it's sort of like looking at a painting. You have all the time you want to look at a painting and to pick out details that you hadn't seen before. Same thing with if you put in the effort to find that bird that you just can't locate, but it's singing, you hear it, and then finally you get it in view and you watch it sing. And birds are so expressive when they're singing. So many of them put so much energy into projecting that sound, and their body puffs up and their tail shakes and their head goes back. All of those things combine and help you sort of crystallize that moment and help you learn that song. So it's really that sort of number one, advice that I think I'd have for you.
And I mean, like, we can talk about how cool it is that Merlin can identify birds singing, and we can talk about how nice it is when you have a friend who can tell you who's singing. But gosh, it is really fun just watching the birds too. So like getting to actually go out there and sort of combine those things in both a really like non-abstract way. Also, I just think is one of the things that I enjoy the most. And it doesn't have to be a rare bird that I'm tracking down. Just the other day there was a bird that I was pretty sure was a tufted titmouse, but it was making a sound. I It had the right tone, but it wasn't making a sound that I had heard it make. And it took me a while to find it, and it was I'm assuming a female titmouse begging to this male with a really kind of different pitch than I was used to hearing. And so these are the sorts of things that often right around you are happening. And if you have a spare moment and you're listening, it can be a really fun reason to get outside and just kind of poke around wherever you might be. Um, but then there's also another problem, maybe as you're trying to learn birds, and that is how do you remember and keep these songs straight? And I've seen a couple people already bring up a couple things in chat about what are those memes or those memory or what are they called? Mnemonics is what a lot of people is sort of the general term for these things. But like a lot of times there's just fun, kind of interesting ways that people have come up with using human language often to try and like lock that song or that sound onto one bird so they can identify it again. Um,
Yeah, one way I like to, think of it is I'm not a musician, but I do know that the notes on the treble clef are like every good boy does fine. And I learned that in like third grade, and I've never really used it since then, except when I'm trying to decode what my kids are playing. Um, and so that's an example of sort of the power of a mnemonic. It's something that'll just stick in your brain, whether it makes sense or not. And and so yeah, we've got a people have been sharing a bunch of their mnemonics, and we've got a bunch here as well, and on our website that we can share with you.
yeah, and a few years back, there was a call that went out at the lab asking people about their favorite mnemonics and imitations when Bird Academy was putting together a course for learning birdsong, which we're going to send you a link to, and that's also what you could potentially win by attending today. Um, And it's just such a fun little video that they put together. I'm going to play the first 30 or so seconds for it of it on the next slide and see if you can recognize the birds that they're singing or mnemonicizing. Coo, coo.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Isn't it sweet?
Old Sam, peewity, 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 quick 3 beers.
Drink your tea, drink your tea. I will see you and I'll seize you and I'll squeeze you till you squirt. You can think that this is the warbling vireo talking to the insect. I will see you and I'll seize you and I'll squeeze you till you squirt.
I love this.
I hope you enjoyed that. It's just so fun to work at the lab with people. These are all people we work with, so it's just so fun to see this.
And everybody has their own imitations. Some people don't want to do an imitation. Some people live for it. I found that trying to do imitations is one of the ways that I learn bird songs. I've had many a kind of long day by myself in the field where I could just practice making those sounds. And sometimes those sounds wind up being repeating to these mnemonics. And everybody has their favorite mnemonics. And we just love this comic by Rosemary Moscow that showed some of her favorites from the East. She also has a graphic for the West. And Rosemary created Bird and Moon comics, which you might have seen online. And she also illustrates a regular comic in our Living Bird magazine that the Cornell Lab of Ornithology puts out quarterly. Um, so feel free to throw in the chat any mnemonics that you found really useful or that you find funny. And we do have a lot of resources for this online as well. And like I said before, we're going to be following up, sending you some things to help you learn some of these mnemonics if you find them helpful. But it's great hearing the kinds of things that you guys are also already using in the chat.
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
I love this visual. I think it's so great. When I first started working at the lab, I worked with the K-12 programs. I worked with teachers, and I would share this during workshops we had and webinars we had to help teach some mnemonics. And I'd call out certain ones like drink your tea, which is what the Eastern towhee sounds like. So I learned these really well, but I hadn't heard all the birds on here. And then one day I was out refereeing a soccer game, and it was the first half of the high school soccer game. I was the center ref, and I hear coming from the woods for the first time, drink your tea. And it was so exciting. And I like had to focus on the game. I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't take a moment to observe and enjoy the bird. But it was awesome because I had spent all this time thinking about it, remembering the mnemonic, and then I heard something from the woods called drink your tea, and I knew exactly what it was.
And Hugh, you had a great story about Townsend's warbler too, didn't you?
Well, I just have this fun one because mnemonics, maybe it doesn't even matter whether they make sense or not, as long as they make a connection in your mind to something that works. And so my favorite example of this is my advisor in grad school. Like this is 25 years ago. He loved to always say about Townsend's warbler, it sounds just like the Maxwell House commercial. And I don't know if you remember that, but it was like doo 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 doo. And so I Charles, do you want to?
Yeah,
That's
give
how
me
I
a second.
learned it. So do you want to play a
I
song?
do. Here we go.
Okay, so that doesn't sound anything like the Maxwell House jingle to me. It has never sounded like it, and I've tried to make it sound like it enough times that now if I'm out in the woods out west and I hear that, I'm like, oh, that's the bird that doesn't sound like the Maxwell House commercial. It's Townsend's warbler.
And so I think the take home message from mnemonics is really that number one, it's what works best for you. And that mnemonic, in a way, mnemonics can be a whole category of things that just helps you tie that memory. And sometimes it's something that is could be the opposite of what the thing sounds like in like the Maxwell House Townsend's Warbler uh, example. Um,
And
the
I
other-
also,
yeah, go
I'll,
ahead.
I'll encourage everyone here because we can't hear you. So while we're going through this, feel free to practice these sounds or these mnemonics as we go. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, we're doing it
Yeah.
out loud here, but you can do it in the comfort of your own space.
Or if you're at work right now and you're watching this on a second screen, trying to like do it on the down low, you burst out with a little, like people might notice, they might not. Hopefully
Just,
everybody's got their, their big oversized noise canceling headphones on, right?
just tell them it was the spring birds outside, not you.
There you go. The other thing about mnemonics is they're for us, right? We're using them to remember what we think birds sound like, but the birds do not use the mnemonics, right? And birds are actually pretty diverse. So I thought this Towhee video was fun because, as Ileana had mentioned, what do they say?
Drink your tea.
Okay, let's see what this Towhee seems to be missing from the mnemonic.
Your tea.
There you go. Yeah, you came prepared with a prop. That's good. And I like this. I see somebody missing the drink. Another person's mnemonic for this was trick or treat. Um, that's great. And so that's the take-home message, I think, with mnemonics, is it kind of comes back to what works for you, what helps it stick in your brain. And as you begin to learn bird songs, you might, learn, okay, I'm going to use these kind of mnemonics more than some other kind. And Ileana, you had this great vignette that you shared with us the other day about this brown-headed nuthatch experience. And I don't know if you want to dive into that right now, but I
Yeah.
thought it was really fun.
I'd be happy to share. Yeah, it was probably late February in Atlanta, Georgia, and I think I'm hearing it right now, a little squeak coming from the forest. I was walking in the forest with some friends. We heard it from the canopy overhead and pulled out Merlin to figure out what it was. Learned that it was this brown-headed nuthatch, and then we kind of dug into it. So we looked on All About Birds and read this description, which I'm going to read out loud, which is the best description ever. When the squeaky sound of a rubber ducky drifts down out of the canopy in a southern pine forest, be on the lookout for brown-headed nuthatches. And that stuck forever. So now whenever hear a rubber ducky in the wild, I will look for a brown-headed nuthatch. So little things like that can really help. And having these resources online, spending time thinking about the bird with friends, looking for it after you hear it. So you were able to look up and we saw it kind of amongst the pine trees and the pine cones. Um, Really made for this memorable experience. And it is cute, just like a little rubber duck. I don't know. I might say it's cuter than a rubber duck.
They're just the cutest.
I'd say
I
they are.
I think the only thing that would maybe give them a little bit of a run for their money might be the pygmy nuthatches out west, which are essentially look very similar in a lot of ways, but there's these little tiny, squeaky, beautiful birds, and they're just the fact that they're still upside down a lot of the time, and I don't know, nuthatches in general are just really fun looking birds.
They're fun. My daughter would put it in the cutie pile of animals.
That's a good pile for it. And so, yeah, I think that to Ileana's point here, it's a sometimes all these little pieces come together and unlock that bird for you. And then forever after that, you kind of have that door to walk through anytime you want to experience that bird. And that can be a really empowering feeling. It can be a really comforting feeling. Um, and it's something then that you can share with other people. You're now that person who's the brown-headed nuthatch, like expert when it comes to those vocalizations, and you have this superpower of transforming other people's ability to also recognize that. I know for me in my neighborhood where I live, if I go for a walk, someone is going to stop me and tell me about the birds they saw and ask me a question about a bird they saw, especially in the spring, like nonstop. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's great and I love it. And you now hopefully are on that path to playing a role that just makes birds, a more important and beautiful part of everybody's lives. Um, This slide is blank because I thought it'd be a good time once more just to pop out of this share and set us up for our big finale here. We probably got about 10 minutes of content left that we wanted to share with you. And I've been so invested in looking at the screen for all of these things we're trying to share that I haven't had a chance to really um, dive into from the chat. But I do see that there were a couple questions about whether we feel like birds are responding to people when we're imitating them outside. Do birds understand people when they're communicating or communicating, trying to do a bird call back to them? Any thoughts on that?
Um, Certainly, some birds are will respond. It does depend a little bit on how good you're doing your imitation, but it also has a little bit to do with how gullible the bird is. And so I think barred owls are very, very forgiving of bad barred owl imitations, um, and so they will often respond. If you hear one calling out in the woods, sometimes they call during the day, and you can try to call back to them and hear back from them. And then, of course, there's also the kind of mobbing calls, the little squeaks and stuff that lots of birds give off, and many species are listening to these calls. So you're not necessarily fooling them that they think it's their own species, but this is a call that's often used to say as sort of like an alarm call, or if a hawk or a crow or something like that's been sighted, they'll give off these calls, and that's why birders do this thing called pishing, which is making a variety of like psh, 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 psh type sounds, and that can get birds' attention and get them to come out and look at what's going on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point too. That, like we mentioned earlier, it's not just songs that birds are singing. Songs are these creations that the birds sing that generally have a role of either attracting a mate or competing with other males for something like territory. But they make all sorts of other calls that have all sorts of different reasons. Some of them have very, very complex repertoires of songs. Some of them just have a few that you might ever come into contact with. And that's part of the fun also of using Merlin is it can sometimes help you realize that a bird that you again thought you might know well, or you might know the song very well, right? You might know a chickadee's little cheeseburger or Phoebe song really, really well, but not know its little complex gargly sound that it makes or the little chips that it might make. And those are really fun things then to like stick in the back of your head, add to your mnemonic, and keep you moving. So that's really fun. One other question, Hugh, because you brought this up even before our in one of our practices about male and female birds and singing, and the fact is it just the males that are doing the singing, or do they sing different songs?
Yeah, great question. Um, sort of received wisdom, or for a long time, you just kind of assume, oh, the males are the bright ones, the males are doing the singing, and that's true for for many birds, but there are also female birds that sing. Very well known example is the northern cardinal. Northern cardinal males are blindingly red and they sing this loud song, but females are also really beautiful in their own way. And they will also sit up there and sing that same northern cardinal song that the male is singing, and sometimes they'll sing it together and kind of duet. And there's a growing recognition that this is happening for many, many species of birds around the world. There's actually a project called the Female Birdsong Project, which is trying to document all of those examples. One thing that seems to be a pattern is that when you go towards the tropics, you get more birds, more female birds sing in the tropics. And so it's just something to like, don't take it for granted that, particularly if you're looking at a species where the males and females look the same, it's hard to know whether you might assume that's a male singing, but it could be either.
That's a really great point. Okay, we don't want to keep. Oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something,
No, I
Liana?
think
Sorry.
that's really interesting about the tendency for females to call more towards the equator. Fascinating.
That is really neat. I don't want to keep people past two, especially not our wonderful conspirators here in the Zoom. So let me reshare my screen. We thought it'd be a really fun thing, pretty much to end out this live event, this hour together, with some other things that we're looking forward to this spring. So again, we can't select from all the birds in the world, and I apologize. I think Pete, I saw you post in the chat at some point. Why couldn't we be doing some birds from the UK? And that's a great point because there's lots of great birds there too. But we decided to focus on North America for this live event, and hopefully you can enjoy the fact we have some nice birds here too. And so each of us chose a bird just to like round out some of the other things that we like, either we're hoping to see or that we associate with the spring that we haven't seen yet or that we wouldn't have maybe seen yet, and share those with you before kind of rounding out the hour. First up is a really incredibly beautiful bird, cedar waxwing. So let's listen to them for a second. And they have a very high-pitched vocalization. So if you can't hear it necessarily, that's okay.
I see we have a lot of other people in the Cedar Waxwing fan club, like myself, which is awesome. They're so pretty. They are the berry gobbling bandits of the sky. That's what I like to call them for fun. And they're very widespread. And I don't think they migrate everywhere, but when I do hear them, I know it's them because they're so high pitched. They're superlative when it comes to song. So when I hear something that's really, really high pitched, I think, okay, there's a big chance it's a cedar waxwing. And then I start looking for it up in the trees in groups, flying overhead. And I'm always excited to be able to catch them on my binoculars, especially when they're gobbling berries together.
Yeah, this is a great species because, as many people have said in the chat, these birds are so beautiful. They have that incredibly sleek plumage and that kind of gradation of color and those highlights and that mask. I mean, they're just amazing looking. And lots of people will see a photo of a cedar waxwing or see it in their field guide and be like, God, I wish I could just see one of those things sometime. You may have friends that say that to you. And in fact, they're actually fairly common across pretty much all of North America. And so if you recognize that call is really distinctive, like Ileana said, because it's so high. And so if you recognize that call, that's your signal. Oh, now I need to start looking for it. They're often in large groups in the tops of trees, so they're not that hard to find once they tell you that they're around. So it's one of those like great parts about what bird song can kind of bring to your bird watching.
And I mean, you cannot, like you alluded to, and a lot of people in the chat, like you cannot come up with just a more like elegant, almost alien looking bird that makes use of so many different things that no other birds seem to. And I think of them, they definitely eat berries around me, but they're a bird that late summer, when there's big hatches of aquatic inverts coming out of the creeks around here, they will sit on the power lines in the trees and fly catch for hours above the creek. So it's again, like it's not what you think of them, but they're actually these really accomplished fly catchers too. Moving on, we have this incredibly beautiful shot of a Townsend solitaire.
These guys, they just go on and on and on. I picked this one because it's maybe you might call it a deep cut because it's not a super widespread species, but it's a bird of the mountains of the West. And I just love both the way they look and the way they sound. And it's actually comes back to like the why I like to listen to bird song. I think of it a little bit as like learning a few constellations. So when you look at the night sky, it's vast and it's like, it's just massive. But if you know a few constellations, there's some familiar shapes up there that kind of let you know where you are and make you sort of reassure you that you're kind of home, and bird song is exactly like that, on a habitat to habitat or place to place basis. So even if you just know a few bird songs, then when you walk out and you hear them, those are just familiar voices that make you feel like, oh, I'm here. And there are birds that I know here. And if you go to a place that you haven't been to in a long time, you may have forgotten about particular bird songs, and then you hear it and you're like, it brings it all right back to you. For me, I used to live out west many, many years ago when I learned about Townsend's warblers. And Townsend's solitaire song just brings back that feeling of being like 7,000 feet in the mountains in this like crisp, cool air, evergreen forest. And there's this bird that's up there with this kind of jumbly song that just goes on and on and on. And it's just such a great feeling for me. And there are many birds like that.
And I have my own favorite for this last shot. Rose-breasted grosbeak here in the east is just one of my favorites. Again, a bird that just looks so spectacular and diagnostic. When I first saw one many, many moons ago, I felt like I had hit the jackpot. And I just feel like to hear that sweet whistle, they always seem so calm and like composed as they're singing at the bird feeder. They seem very, very mellow. They're just definitely one of these birds that I cannot wait to get back because they become just a part of the habitat around us, which I really enjoy. Um, Let me see here. So we're getting towards the end of the hour. I wanted to point out to everybody that we have a lot of stuff to share with you this spring to help you on your journey to wherever your bird song and spring birding and migration and your own bird journey wants to take you. And Hugh, you guys have been preparing a lot of stuff for everyone to use this spring, right?
Yeah, so like I say, I edit the All About Birds website. So one of the things that we want to do with this spring campaign is after we have a live event like this, we'll send you a follow-up email and we'll point you to some resources to help you sort of go a little bit deeper and to sort of amplify on what we've been talking about here. So we have some pages up on All About Birds that will walk you through each of these elements we've been talking about. What are the basic parts of a song? How do you read a spectrogram? What are some of our favorite mnemonics? And we've got video up there of each bird singing, so you can watch it, listen to it, hopefully learn it. We've got a video. We're creating a series of videos that will just introduce you to 10 singers from different parts of North America, just to try to sort of help you along and so that you don't just have to remember everything we just talked about right now in the last hour. And we'll also point you towards a Bird Academy course. I saw in the chat there were a few questions about courses. Somebody was asking about how to learn how to record really nice sound recordings, and there is a whole Bird Academy course for that. And so we'll be sending you those resources as well.
And Ileana, you were mentioning how many lucky attendees are going to get randomly chosen? So three.
Three lucky attendees.
Will get a free course. And then what does everybody get that came?
You get a 50% off discount on the Birdsong Basics Getting Started with Birding by Ear.
So uh, that is a deep way for those of you who are saying less chatter, more bird song, tell us how to do these things. There's lots of different, more in-depth ways for you to get really good information about this. We also have two more live events coming up this spring. The one in May is going to focus on bird migration in your backyard, trying to make sure that you're kind of like keeping tabs, mental tabs on the fact birds are continuing to move through. What could I be looking at in May that I wouldn't want to miss? And then in June, talking about what you can do to support birds all summer long, thinking about your yard, as well as keeping your eyes peeled for some really special summer birding sites. So before we sign off, I wanted to really thank Ileana and Hugh for spending all this time with us today, sharing your experiences. I hope that people feel like if you show up in Ithaca and walked up to us, we'd probably enjoy going on a bird walk with you. That's really where a lot of the joy and support for birds comes, is from sharing this feeling with people. And thank you guys in the chat. I'm looking over at the chat, but I should look at the. Thank you guys in the chat for sharing so much with us, because it's been really fun to bounce ideas off the things you've been putting there, and it made it a really special community event. Any last thoughts for the audience, Hugh or Liana?
It's just such a special time of the year, and we hope you enjoy it. And we hope that the information shared here helps you get even more from this wonderful season. And check your email in 30 minutes. That's when you'll get all these resources.
Yeah. And crack your window open if it's warm enough outside, and let the spring birdsong come in.
Those are really great points. And I also want to make sure everybody knows that you can help support bird conservation and engaging people in these kinds of events by thinking about supporting the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. You can learn more about us and how you can make a difference at birds.cornell.edu. So big thanks to you all for taking a moment. Hopefully you have as nice a day as I do right now to go outside and actually enjoy the birds, because that is where I'm going next. And I hope to see you all at our next event in May. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.